As I might have told you in one of the earlier podcasts, that Upanishads are among the most sacred Hindu scriptures, full of poetry and philosophy. There are hundreds of them, but only a handful are considered to be important. So I'm going to pick one of them and tell you a story. The Upanishads are full of stories, and most of the times these stories revolve around around the philosophy of the self, the soul, the consciousness. So the Upanishad philosophers, all they were trying to do was they were trying to understand the self. And so too is the case with the story that I'm going to narrate you today. The Upanishad is called the Chandogya Upanishad, and the story is about Shvetaketu, who was the son of Rishi Uddalaka. Rishi means sage in Hindi. So when Shvetaketu, when he turned 12, he was asked by his father to go and get his education from a Gurukul. These Gurukuls were traditional boarding schools in India where mostly the boys from the certain communities, they studied. So when Shvetaketu returned from the Gurukul after finishing his 12 years rigorous training in all the branches of knowledge, his father Uddalaka found arrogance in his expression. Here we learn an important lesson, that education, knowledge can bring arrogance in a human being. Once Uddalaka called his son by his side and asked him, "Shvetaketu, my boy, have you ever sought out the knowledge of that by which the unheard can be heard, the unseen can be seen, the unknowable can be known?" Shvetaketu was shocked. He had no idea what his father was talking about. So he asked his father to offer some insights. Uddalaka told Shvetaketu, "Son, by knowing one lump of clay, you may learn everything about clay. The only difference between such thing is the name, a result of speech. But the truth is that all such things are of the same substance. Likewise, by knowing one chunk of gold, you may learn about everything made of gold. The only difference between such things is the name, a result of speech. But the truth is that all such things are of the same substance, and the same is true for even the simplest tools made of iron. This, my son, is the knowledge of which I speak." Uddalaka thus continued saying, "Dear child, in the beginning of things there was pure being, one without a second. It willed to become many. Then it manifested itself in the form of fire, and from fire came water, and from there came food. This way, this rich variety of things came into existence by permutation and combination of these forms. Then life appeared, and among the living beings there came man with his varied powers and functions." Shvetaketu stopped his father from going ahead and asked him to explain where a man would go during sleep. The father merges in the power beyond. That power is subtle, it pervades the universe. That is the truth, that is the spirit. That's what you are. Shvetaketu was not satisfied, and he wanted to know more about that all pervading power. Here Uddalaka explains to him about the One. He says, "Dear child, bees bring droplets of honey from various flowers and store in the hive. Once in the hive, do the droplets know from which flowers they came? Need they know it? So too all these beings, when merged into the ocean of being, they know not whence they came. All became one when they have merged in the ocean of consciousness of the one being that is subtle, that pervades everything. That is the Atman. That's what you are, Shvetaketu." Then Uddalaka gives the example of all rivers merging into the ocean and losing their individual identity. Then he gives another example in which he explains that by cutting a part of the tree, the whole tree does not die. Only that part which is cut dies. Thus, that which is deprived of its life dies, but the life itself does not die. The power by which life lives eternally is the spirit. That's what you are, Shvetaketu. Shvetaketu listened to his father attentively, and he said, "My respected teachers must not have known this, for if they had, they surely would have told me. Won't you please give me more of this knowledge, father?" And Uddalaka agreed to do so. And we see further dialogues between the son and the father in the following manner. Uddalaka says, "Bring me a fruit from the banyan tree." Shvetaketu replies, "Here is one, father." Uddalaka says, "Break it open." Shvetaketu says, "It is broken, father." Uddalaka says, "What do you see there?" Shvetaketu says, "These tiny seeds." Uddalaka says, "Now break one of them open." Shvetaketu says, "It is broken, father." Uddalaka says, "What do you see there?" Shvetaketu says, "Nothing, father." Uddalaka says, "My son, you know there is subtle essence which you do not perceive, but through that essence the truly immense banyan tree exists. Believe it, my son, everything that exists has itself in that subtle essence. It is truth, it is the self, it's you, Shvetaketu." Shvetaketu further pleaded with his father to teach him more, and Uddalaka continued. Uddalaka says, "Bring a pinch of salt, my son." Shvetaketu says, "Here, I have brought the salt, father." Uddalaka says, "Place this salt in water and come back to me in the morning." The son did as he was told. Uddalaka comes back in the morning and says, "Bring me the salt you put in the water last night." Shvetaketu says, "Father, I cannot find it." Uddalaka says, "Of course not. It has dissolved. Now taste the water from the surface. How does it taste? It's salty. Taste the water from the middle of the bowl. How does it taste? It's salty. Now taste the water from the bottom. How does it taste? It's salty." Uddalaka says, "Go, throw it away and come back to me." Shvetaketu did so and returned. Shvetaketu, "But father, although I have thrown it away, the taste of the salt remains." Uddalaka says, "Likewise, though you cannot hear or perceive or know the subtle essence, it is here. Everything that exists has itself in that subtle essence. It is truth, it is the self, and it's you, Shvetaketu." Now think about it. Think about this idea of self. What are we? What exactly is the self? What is this consciousness? These are difficult questions. And only some people in history have attempted to answer these questions. And if you study Upanishads, you'll find so many explanations of the self. It's very interesting to read all of this. And just like this particular story, the idea of self, the one with the universal God, I'm not even sure we should name that particular universal power as God, but let's go with that. This idea of the self, the eternal self, the Brahman, it gets repeated in Hinduism on multiple occasions. So I'm sure if you get a chance to read these texts, you will have a good time, and more importantly, I'm sure you'll have a lot of food on your plate to think and explore these ideas. Thank you very much for listening.